Nobody in their right mind would ever think I would kill myself before I killed you. Nobody. Name one person.
On March 6, 2023, a healthy 43-year-old mother of 6 walked into a hospital in Colorado with severe dizziness, vomiting, and neurological symptoms. Her name was Angela Dawn Krug, and with no history of serious medical problems, doctors were at a loss. Her toxicology report showed no signs of poisoning, and over the next several days, her condition appeared to improve and she was discharged. Within days, she was sick again, this time more severely, and was readmitted to the hospital. This time, she wouldn't be so lucky. While in the hospital, she suffered a catastrophic decline and was placed on life support. 12 days after originally going to the hospital, Angela was declared brain dead. Angela Dawn Krug was born on April 15, 1979, in Dodge City, Kansas. By the age of 43, she was living in Aurora, Colorado, the mother of 6, and a wife of over 20 years to James Krug. Angela lived her life by her faith and her family. She was the youngest of 10 siblings and put her own children at the center of her life. On the surface, Angela appeared to lead a happy, busy life, but underneath that exterior was a seriously strained marriage. James had engaged in multiple extramarital affairs over the years and had continued this behavior up to the point of Angela's untimely death. Plus, James's dental practice was struggling, and there were claims of mounting debt. 5 days before Angela's death, on March 13th, James's office staff accidentally opened a package that was meant for only James himself. Inside was potassium cyanide, and the staff member found this odd because it had no use in dentistry. The cyanide wasn't linked to Angela until her second hospital visit, and only after the office manager, Caitlin Romero, realized the symptoms of cyanide poisoning matched Angela's symptoms. So she informed James's business partner, Ryan Redfern, who alerted a nurse at the hospital where Angela was being treated. Since the nurse was a mandatory reporter, she notified the Aurora police. On March 16th, 2 days before Angela's death, Caitlin Romero and Ryan Redfern went to the police headquarters to give voluntary statements, which led to a search warrant for the Krug home later that day. Inside, they found multiple types of protein powders and several workout-style shaker bottles. One pink-lidded shaker bottle found on a nightstand later tested positive for tetrahydrozoline, an ingredient typically found in eye drops. A bottle of antibiotic clindamycin was found, which prosecutors believe James emptied and filled with potassium cyanide. He then had Angela's sister unknowingly administer one to her. Investigators then found home surveillance footage of James preparing protein shakes for Angela, as well as a tense argument where Angela accused him of telling hospital staff that she wanted to take her own life.
Because you were too concerned about what you were concerned about. You have all the details of every medical, everything, everywhere we go. And you didn't even ask. The only thing that saved my life last night was God. What's that? Because nobody else did anything for me. Nobody in their right mind would ever think I would kill myself before I killed you. Nobody. Name one person.
There were also extensive Google searches regarding undetectable poisons and how to make a murder look like a heart attack. They believe he was using the protein shakes to administer the poison because of text messages between Angela and James, where she said she felt drugged and the only thing she had consumed that morning was a protein shake. When the toxicology report came back, it confirmed the investigators' suspicions that Angela had in fact been poisoned. The exact poisoning was cyanide and tetrahydrozoline. This wasn't discovered on her initial visit to the hospital because standard hospital toxicology screens do not automatically detect heavy metals such as arsenic and cyanide unless doctors specifically order those tests. This lined up with the internet searches found on James's computer. He'd used search phrases such as, "How many grams of pure arsenic will kill a human? Is arsenic detectable in an autopsy? and how to make a murder look like a heart attack. Also, remember when she went into a catastrophic decline? Hospital security footage showed James entering her hospital room holding a syringe. It's believed that at that moment he administered a final, fatal dose of poison, which would later explain her sudden decline. Since the investigation began before Angela's death, they already had enough evidence to arrest James within 24 hours of her dying. He was then charged with first-degree murder after deliberation. He tried to persuade another inmate to kill the lead detective and a key witness while in jail by offering them each $20,000. This led to an additional charge of solicitation to commit first-degree murder. During his trial, his defense attorney didn't dispute that Angela had been sick or that poison had been found in her system, but argued that the prosecution had not proven that James Krug administered it. They claimed the investigation was biased from the beginning and criticized law enforcement for not initially seizing Angela's laptop or recovering her journal during the first search of their home. Portions of the journal were later turned over and showed a troubled marriage, not someone trying to take their own life as James suggested. One of the inmates James had talked to said he talked about rewriting pages from Angela's journal to make it look like she wanted to take her own life. The cellmate said he even asked him to place a fake journal at the house or inside her vehicle, and said James even provided him a map and details about the cameras at the home. Ultimately, the jury rejected the defense's arguments and found James guilty of first-degree murder, as well as additional charges, including solicitation to commit murder and solicitation to commit perjury. At sentencing, one of the couple's 6 children delivered a victim impact statement expressing the profound betrayal she felt. The judge then sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder conviction, plus an additional 33 years for the related charges. Bartlett Writer thought he'd be home for lunch. It was a 10-minute cataract surgery, a procedure so routine it's performed nearly 4 million times a year in the U.S. But while Bart lay on the table, paralyzed by anesthesia and unable to scream, his life wasn't in the hands of medical professionals. It was in the hands of 2 men playing a game of music bingo on a smartphone. While they were waiting for the next song to drop, Bart's heart stopped. And the most terrifying part, the doctors had silenced the alarm so they could hear the music. Bart, whose full name was Bartlett, was born on March 23, 1966, in Denver, Colorado. At the age of 56, he still called Colorado home. The state and its Rocky Mountains weren't just his birthplace or where he lived, but it was who he was. He attended Kent-Denver High School, earned his business degree from the University of Colorado, and later earned his MBA from the University of Texas at Austin. He built a respected career in financial planning, became a partner at Madison Financial, and held several professional designations. His biggest claim to fame, though, was his wife and kids. He and his wife, Kris, had been married for 22 years and had a son, Cole. Bart never met a stranger and always cared about how others saw the world. On February 3, 2023, Bart underwent cataract surgery at Insight Surgery Center in Lone Tree, Colorado. The surgery was supposed to last about 10 minutes, but about 11 minutes in, Bart's vital signs started to change. His oxygen levels dropped, and he went into respiratory distress. He was hooked up to monitors that would sound alarms if something went wrong, but those crucial alarms were either turned down or switched off. The reason for this was the game the surgical team was playing called Music Bingo. They would play songs from a cell phone playlist and match the artist to the letter spelling bingo. The anesthesiologist, Dr. Michael Urban, was in charge of Bart's vital signs and was the only one who could see the full monitors. However, he was too busy keeping score in the game.
I want to talk to you about the music bingo game.
I'm sorry, Lorraine, the music what?
Bingo game.
Oh, thank you.
I understand that you would keep score.
I would usually, but not always, keep score.
We continually listen to the radio and we categorize the songs.
So as an example, if the 70s group Bee Gees were to sing a song, that would be a letter B.
B was for the Bee Gees, Barry Manilow.
You agree that
the alarms monitoring the vital signs should not have been disabled or turned off. Fair?
Yes, that's fair. I know that he wasn't paying attention to the vital signs and doing his job.
At 1:17 p.m., 11 minutes into the procedure, a nurse noted Bart's abnormal vital signs. The nursing staff then noticed he had stopped breathing, and a code blue was initiated, which is a medical emergency for cardiac and respiratory arrest. The staff rushed him to Sky Ridge Medical Center, located about 1.5 miles away. Unfortunately, he had already sustained severe brain injury and was pronounced dead not long after. At first, his wife Kris was led to believe that his death was a tragic, unavoidable accident. However, that changed when she received a call from a doctor who worked at the same facility but had not been in the room. This doctor told her the story of the music bingo game, called it a major distraction, and explaining that the surgical team routinely played it during procedures. Kris didn't immediately go to the police with the information and instead used it to build a legal case that eventually forced the truth into the open. Armed with the tip, she hired a team of lawyers to take sworn depositions from the surgeon, Dr. Carl Stark Johnson, and the anesthesiologist, Dr. Michael Urban. During these legal proceedings, both doctors admitted under oath that they were indeed playing the game and that the monitor alarms had been silenced.
Were you playing music bingo during Bartlett Writer's February 3rd, 2023 cataract surgery?
Yes.
In 2024, Johnson and Urban settled the case for undisclosed amounts. With video evidence of the doctors confessing to their music bingo distraction, the case moved from the civil courts to the criminal justice system. Law enforcement and the district attorney weren't looking at a mistake anymore. They were looking at a homicide investigation. On January 16, 2026, a grand jury in Douglas County, Colorado, officially indicted Dr. Michael Urban. He faces felony counts of manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide. He hasn't been arrested yet because he moved to Oregon after Bart's death and a warrant was issued. As of late January 2026, Dr. Urban says he plans to turn himself in to Colorado authorities to avoid formal extradition from Oregon.
I myself, this is intending to be terrorizing. This is intending to scare me. He's like, we're meant to be together. I said, this is really creepy for me. You need to stop. Like, this was alarming. He's never said this kind of stuff to me before. So this now is escalating.
I got a female down in the garage.
Kristil Krug was the personification of having it all. A brilliant biochemical engineer, a gifted dancer, and a mother who lived for her 3 children. From the outside, her life in Broomfield, Colorado, was a portrait of success. But on the morning of December 14th, 2023, at 8 a.m., just minutes after dropping her kids off at school, all that came to an end. When Kristil arrived back home, pulled into the garage, and exited her car, she was viciously and fatally attacked in the place she should have been safest. Around noon that day, her husband Daniel called the Broomfield Police's non-emergency line after not being able to reach Kristil by text or calls.
Broomfield Dispatchers meeting.
Hi there. My name is Dan Krug. We've had threats against us. We have both been targeted by a stalker, which is why I'm nervous that she's not answering me.
Yeah.
He asked them for a welfare check and said he had a really weird feeling because of a stalker he and Kristil had been dealing with in the weeks leading up to her murder. At 12:28 p.m., an officer arrived at the home, knocked on the door, but received no answer. He then attempted to look into the garage windows, but was unable to see clearly. So he used the push bumper on his patrol car as a step to peer through a higher window. And that's when he spotted Kristil's body on the floor with visible head trauma. He attempted CPR, but it was too late, and she was pronounced dead at 12:43 p.m. Her ultimate cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head and a knife to the heart. Kristil was born on November 24, 1980, in Boulder, Colorado, and was described as the kind of person who easily connected with others and made a room feel warmer by just being in it. From a young age, she loved modern dance and the performing arts. It was a passion that stayed with her throughout her life. But she was also exceptionally bright, especially when it came to science. She earned an academic scholarship to the Colorado School of Mines, where she began studying biochemical engineering before later transferring to the University of Colorado Boulder. There, she continued to excel, graduating with a degree in biochemical engineering. She then had a successful career working at Agilent Technologies. But the accomplishment she was most proud of was her children, ages 14, 11, and 8. Daniel was the children's father, and he and Kristil had been together for 16 years after marrying in 2007. Unfortunately, by 2023, the marriage had soured, and Kristil was planning to divorce him and seek full custody of their children before her untimely death. Interestingly, Daniel's information about the stalker really caught the investigators' attention. During an interview with him, he wasn't shy about who he thought the murderer was, and immediately pointed investigators to Kristil's ex-boyfriend, Anthony Holland. Investigators already had Anthony's name because Kristil had gone to the police station and filed a stalking report weeks before her murder and named Holland in it. She thought it was him because the email address that the harassing messages were coming from was a.holland.kicks@gmail.com. However, that theory was quickly put to rest when investigators called the Utah Police Department within hours of the murder and confirmed that Anthony was 500 miles away and could not have committed the crime. This was verified using a receipt from a Kohl's department store. With no leads to go on, detectives put an urgent request in with Google and Verizon to identify the IP address of the harassing calls and emails. When the results came in, investigators were shocked. The IP address linked right back to Daniel's workplace, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. The stalker's phone number was then traced back to a burner phone that was purchased with a Visa gift card registered in Daniel's name. One last piece of damning evidence was a Google search on Daniel's personal device about how to cause head trauma without brain damage. While there was a lot of evidence pointing to Daniel, the problem was that he could prove he was at work on the morning of the murder when he and Kristil were allegedly texting. There was also an issue with a photo from the alleged stalker of Daniel getting into his car. If Daniel was the stalker, like investigators now believed, how was the photo taken and messages sent? This mystery was solved by digital forensic expert Randy Pillock. He determined that Kristil's phone had not been manually used after 8:22 a.m., and that the 8:56 a.m. text message from her was a scheduled message that Daniel had set up in her phone to create the illusion that she was still alive after he left the house. They also found surveillance footage showing Daniel leaving 30 minutes later than he usually did. With all this evidence in hand, Daniel was arrested on December 16, 2023, and charged with first-degree murder, stalking, and criminal impersonation. At trial in April 2025, Daniel's lawyers argued that the case was purely circumstantial. There was no DNA or blood evidence pointing to Daniel, and the DNA found under the blue tape used to cover the garage camera had DNA from an unknown source. There was also a partial DNA profile from an unknown person found on Kristil's neck. The prosecution argued that the DNA was trace amounts of touch DNA, also known as transfer DNA, and could have belonged to just about anyone who might have handled the tape, even at the factory where it was manufactured. The DNA on her neck was also in trace amounts, and the prosecutor argued it could have been transferred from her 3 young children who frequently climbed on her. The defense also argued that there was no struggle DNA found under her fingernails, but it was determined that Daniel had ambushed her before she could react, likely knocking her unconscious with the first blow to the head. The jury didn't buy the defense's claims, mainly because all the stalker information pointed right back at Daniel. On April 17, 2025, the jury found him guilty on all charges. The following day, he was sentenced to life in prison, plus an additional 9.5 years for the stalking and impersonation charges. To this day, Daniel maintains his innocence, but even his immediate family had halted most of their support of him after learning of the horrific details during the trial. As of February 2026, he remains incarcerated at the Sterling Correctional Facility in Sterling, Colorado.